That's right. Welcome back to the Puck Draw Podcast. I'm called the NHL Music Man Chapman, and I am here in UTOG, the bee's knees of the breweries in Ogden. And I'm here with Carson Foss. He is the owner of UTOG. Carson, welcome. He's actually one of our newest sponsors for 2025.
Yes.
So he's a big supporter of hockey and the podcast. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming down here.
And we'll have a cheers with your beer.
Yes.
We're drinking the Power Play Pilsner.
Yep, and I got the Snowcat IPA.
Awesome.
So cheers.
So yeah, and I've noticed so this is actually one of my favorite pubs, bars, whatever, to come to with my wife, and we deemed it our favorite before I even knew you.
Yeah, Well, I'm really happy to be sponsoring the podcast. You guys have done great with what you started, and happy to have you. And I'm glad that our pub was your go-to before you did the podcast.
It's amazing. I mean, you can probably see from the scenery that we got going on here. We're down here. I mean, what would you call this?
This is a brew pit.
Your brew pit.
It really is a pit because we are just below where the restaurant is. So people that are eating can kind of look down on us and ask questions and basically see 100% of the operation.
So we're going to get into a lot of questions on how you make beer. So let's start. No let's start with that. How do you? So you told me earlier that you were the head brewer. For 2 years.
For about the first 2 years. And then Brett came in and basically just trained him from ground up. And now he does everything day to day. And I kind of do more like director of operation and fill in where I need to.
Love it.
So,
so you're the owner, right?
I am the owner. I got two other partners as well.
Okay.
But I'm the primary owner and love UTOG and eat, live, breathe it every single day. And it's been really fun. We're almost, this March 28th will be 6 years.
Love it. And what stemmed you to start a brewery here in Ogden?
So the reason I wanted to start one in Ogden is we moved back here in 2014. And before that, we had lived in Omaha. I lived in Florida. I lived in Phoenix. And traveling with airline, because I'm an airline pilot as well, all the overnights I'd try to go to a brewery. And then when we lived in these other cities, they all had a ton of breweries, and that's kind of where our social hangout was. Mm-hmm. When we moved back in 2014, there was only one brewery north of Kaysville.
Yeah.
Great brewery, but with how many people there were, we needed more. And so during that time, I was a big avid home brewer. Been doing it for about 10 years.
Oh, okay, cool.
My friends opened Park City Brewery up in Park City, and they allowed me to come shadow. So by just gaining that experience, what I had in home brewing, I took a little class with Portland State University, and I knew that Ogden had the need for another brewery / restaurant. And so we found a really cool location, and 2017 kind of started the business plan. And then in 18 did the construction and opened March of 2019.
Awesome. So was this an existing building and you just did a complete remodel? Or?
Yeah, this building was built in 1906.
Love it. A lot of cool history. Yeah, you can just see it in the architecture and
it was a knitting mill, so it made basically uniforms for World War I.
Oh wow!
And then when there was no need for that anymore, they made garments for the LDS Church.
Okay.
They did that until the church decided to make their own, and then it was Lovely Lady Lingerie.
Okay.
And so it was the largest lingerie west of the Mississippi. And then after they moved out, it was kind of vacant for like 20 years with just random shops, and then we found it and gutted it. Cut a hole in the floor to, put all the brewery equipment.
Okay.
And it turned into a really unique, beautiful, restaurant, bar, brewery.
Yeah, it really is. It is incredible. If you haven't come here, you got to come here. So their back patio actually is the outfield of the Ogden Raptors. They're one of our farm teams. They're AAA baseball. And they're a farm team for the Dodgers, correct?
They were in 2020 when MLB dropped about 50 teams. They were one that got slated. So I don't think they're quite AAA anymore.
Okay.
They do still feed some programs, but I'm not quite sure who.
Still fun either way.
It's a beautiful scenery. I mean, you can sit at the ballpark, look at the mountains. Our back patio, like you said, has 60 seats, so you can watch the whole game. We got a playground for the kids, so while they're playing, you can have your dinner and beverage and enjoy life.
And that's a unique thing about this place is you can bring your kids here.
Family friendly. So that was one of my big things when I opened it is every time I'd go to a brewery in Salt Lake, I had to find a babysitter. And granted, I like to go out and have a beer without my kids, but lots of times it's really nice to come down, have a beer, dinner, and let your child, be with you. Especially in the summertime, they can go play and
your outdoor patio. You've got cornhole out there and live music. And
so family-friendly brewery is what I strive for because there's not a lot of them. So it's really nice for people that want to do that.
What was the process like of getting your brewery to be accepted to have kids in it? I know, with Utah state laws and whatnot.
Yeah. So with us, I wanted to have food because, a lot of people, when they come out to have beers, they have food trucks or other venues that I get. But I really wanted to have good food, and we got lucky that we got a really good chef. And so by doing that, we have a restaurant license. And in Utah, you basically get to choose restaurant or bar or tap.
Yeah.
Restaurant's the only one that allows children. So it kind of made my mind up for me to allow kids because we wanted a full-service restaurant.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but years ago, me and my wife were talking to one of your servers, and we're like, your food here is so good. Why is it better than anybody else around?
Yes.
And the answer we got was you have an actual chef here.
Yes.
You don't purchase your menu off of the internet or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of the dishes were inspired here at UTOG, and we've got an amazing kitchen staff. They work 7 days a week. They're creative. We have no microwaves, so everything's brought in fresh, and we have a truck that shows up Mondays and Thursdays. And so really fresh food, very unique, and it pairs well with all of our different beers.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
So getting into the beer talk again.
Yes.
This is just me being, I have no idea how you make beer, what it takes, but I'm always curious, what it takes to add a flavor into it.
Yeah.
Because obviously you've got hoppy beers and ales and you name it. There's a lot of different beers out there, but I'm more curious about the ones that actually have a flavor to it, like your blueberry or your son of a peach.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you get that peach flavor?
So to answer the question a few minutes ago, basically the brewing process, I'll run it through in a quick abbreviated Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
First, it starts with an idea. So me, Brett, our staff, beers I drink on the road, wow, this is cool. How do I make it? So we first sit down, make a quick recipe. When we make the recipe, we usually try it out on our 10-gallon system because it's a lot quicker and a lot cheaper than doing a 500-gallon system behind me. So once we got the recipe, we tried it out. We start with brewing. We get our ingredients here. All the ingredients come in raw. So we have our malt and our hops and our yeast and basically water. And that's pretty much what makes beer. We start with the malt as our first process. And we basically dump it in a mill, and it kind of cracks the shell on it, which exposes everything that the hot water needs to turn it into sugars.
Okay.
So we first mill it in, and then it fills up the grist case, which was hanging up on the ceiling. I don't know if the cameras can see it. And then when we start the brewing process, we open a trap door, and that grist starts mixing in the mash tun with the water that's a certain temperature, depending on what style of beer we're making.
Yeah.
It basically mixes in there. It becomes oatmeal. We let it sit for about a half hour. After it's done sitting, we open up the bottom, which has a screen on it, which allows the liquid to start moving over to the boil kettle to my behind me over here.
Okay.
While it's doing that, we're taking hot water and spraying the top of that grain bed, and we're basically rinsing all the sugars off of that grain bed.
Okay.
We do that process until we get to a predetermined volume over here, and then using the calculations and the recipe, we've extracted the most sugars we can out of that grain.
Right.
As soon as that process is done, we light the fire underneath the boil kettle and it starts to bring it to a boil. While that's heating up to a boil, we basically take all that mash and we put it in a giant bin, and a local farmer comes and gets it, and they feed their cows with it. So that's what happens to the mash. Back to the boil kettle. So now once it gets to a boil, that's when you can throw in your hops and any other flavorings that you want to throw in there. And what that hot water does is it breaks down those hops and every hop gives a little different flavor, primarily for bittering. And then for those beers that want IPAs, after the boil process, we can throw them in right at the end of the boil where the liquid starts cooling down, and that'll give less bittering and a little more aromas.
Okay, so that's how an IPA is made.
Yep.
All
and
right.
then
interesting.
once it starts cooling down, the next thing we have to do is we have to get that boiling liquid to below 80 degrees because we have to put yeast on it. And if it's above that, the yeast isn't happy and it could die. So basically, when we're done boiling, there's a heat exchanger, just like a radiator on a car. We got hot, it's called wort, going one direction, and cold city water going the other.
Okay.
It cools that wort down, and as it leaves the heat exchanger, you can't see it, but there's a bunch of tanks around us.
Yeah.
They're called fermenters. The wort's going to start filling up the fermenter. And then what's also cool is that cold water that I said was absorbing the heat, it's recycling back into our hot liquor tank, which is like a big hot water tank. So we're not wasting any water while we're cooling the wort. That process takes about 45 minutes. And at the end, we'll have a fermenter that's full of wort, which is basically sugar water. That's what beer is before you add the yeast. When you throw the yeast in, we throw it in, we basically shut the lid, and while we were filling the fermenter, we hook it up with oxygen because yeast love sugar and oxygen.
Okay.
And that's their job. So they're going to eat that sugar, and while they're eating that sugar, they're digesting, they're basically turning it into alcohol, and they're pooping out CO2. So you're getting rid of the oxygen, you're turning it into alcohol, and it takes anywhere from 10 to 14 days, and then we'll basically hurry and dial down the temperature. That lets a lot of the yeast fall out of suspension and go to the bottom of the tank. They're shaped like cones, as you can see. We can recollect that yeast and use it again on another beer.
Oh, okay. Cool.
After it's done that and it's been cold, we move it over to a bright tank. And bright tanks have a little different shape to them, but that's where we carbonate the beer. So we basically take beer with no carbonation and we carbonate it. Once it's carbonated, we hook it up to some lines and it goes to a keg or a can. Okay. So all of our beers either go to a keg or a can. Yeah. And that's a quick 5-minute version of...
It's like a science project, honestly.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of science to it, a lot of chemistry.
We'll have to make an episode one day and like follow the process. You can
talk weeks on beer. Yes.
So, that's awesome. Yes. So, what's your involvement in the hockey world? So,
yes.
And I kind of caught wind, like, again, before I even knew you, I knew that you had some beers that were named after some hockey slang, you know. Yeah. So we kind of caught wind that Carson loves hockey.
Yes.
And UTOG loves hockey.
We do.
And I know he's got kids that play in it. His kids play with my nephews. They just got back from Fargo.
Monday, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what's your involvement in hockey? How'd you fall in love with the sport?
I fell in love with it playing. I started when I was 10. Did a lot of roller hockey before that, and then basically from 10 on, I did a combination of ice and roller. I've been playing. I'm 40 years old now. I've been playing since I was 10, so I pretty much haven't taken more than a couple months off when it comes to either high school or basically men's leagues, some travel teams. I've pretty much played off and on for like 30 years. And it's just a lot of fun. No matter what city I've lived in, I've met a great group of people. It gets you out moving a couple days a week. And then obviously when I moved back to Utah, jump right back into all my old high school friends and men leagues up there. And when I had kids, as soon as they're old enough to skate, we got them signed up for the Mustangs.
3 years old, 2 years old, you're getting on the ice.
And if they're on the ice, I'm like, I want to be with you. So I volunteered and started helping, coach. And then after about a year of coaching, one of the guys that was had been running it for a while said, "Hey, do you want to help run the 8U, that's 8 and under?" And so I said, "Sure." So I did that, and I've done it the last 4 years. Last year, I started flying again with the airline, so I couldn't be the lead guy on it, but I still try to be up at the ice sheet as much as possible. Coaching the kids, it's really cool. Like you said, your nephew and my son, that whole group of kids, I've known them for 5 years. So watching them progress from not being able to even stick handle to now we're traveling and going places, it's just so much fun. And all the hockey parents, I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts about how a close, tight-knit family it is, and they pretty much are your family.
It is.
9 months of the year.
It really is. Like, even like NHL players that we've talked to, it's like when kids basically leave home to go play hockey, it's like that's what they do. Theo Fleury had a story. He's like, it was awesome. when I was 19, I got put into the IHL and I didn't know how to do my own laundry.
Yep.
So it's like it's a brew way of definitely learning the ins and outs about life and whatnot. And I think it transpires over to everyday life and everybody's respect for one another and whatnot. So.
Yeah, and it's as soon as I opened UTOG, like my main goal was to give back to the community, and obviously I'm going to lean towards what I'm passionate about first. So, just helping with the youth hockey, we got over the last couple of years being able to sponsor the Mustangs and the Ogden Raptors, and then for the younger programs, getting new divider boards, so that you can cut the ice in half for the younger kids. The ice sheet didn't have those.
Oh,
so
really?
We were able to get some of those. Us and other sponsors helped a lot with that.
Love it.
Same thing with nets. For the 3 years I coached, we had like the worst nets for 6 years, and that year they like falling apart. So last year we were able to, myself and a lot of other parents and other businesses sponsor and get all new nets for the ice sheet, and just helping the program grow, and then being a part of the community. So like when we have tournaments, like I'd love to have people come down here and have dinner and I try to support all the parents with beer when we go on locals. And
well, I love that you saw that there was a problem with probably ice time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so you're like, how can we get boards for these younger kids? Because now you're turning one ice rink into 3 ice rinks.
Exactly, and it makes it so organized. We'd go travel at other arenas, and they're like, wow, they have this. Why can't we? And the ice sheet is a beautiful facility.
Oh,
with
incredible.
2 sheets of ice, and so technically, if we divided it up right, we could have 6 little games going on at a time.
Yeah.
And so that was the goal.
And that's huge. And that's where, hockey stems from youth,
Yes.
So yeah, that is cool. So let's talk about your experience with NHL.
Okay.
What was your, traveling around and whatnot?
Yes.
I don't know if you had a solid team because of how much you traveled.
Yes.
So who was your team, growing up and going through it?
So growing up, I really liked the Red Wings in '97 because that's like when I started getting, and they were amazing back then. And then after that, when I started playing, I started watching the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I love them. When they got Crosby, I fell in love. And I kind of been more watching different players all over the league. Like I just sprinkle them all over.
Yeah.
When I moved to Florida, that's when Tampa was good. Martin St. Louis, short guy, I'm short, and so I was like, really like Tampa back when they were playing together.
You gotta love short players, man.
Yes.
Like,
well, they have to fight so hard.
Yeah, they do.
So I was a Tampa guy for a while. I lived in Florida, and then when my wife got her residency in Phoenix, we moved there, and the Coyotes we'd go watch them all the time. So I was a Coyotes fan.
Cool. So you saw the Coyotes.
Yeah. So
Not a lot of people in Utah can say that.
No. So we lived there for 4 years, and we went to a handful of games every year. One of my friends, his dad had a box there, so we went and got to see that a lot, and then moved to Utah, and I was like, we'd still go once or twice a year down to Phoenix to watch them. And last year, when they were talking about bringing another sports franchise here, like my money was on baseball. Like I did not think we would get hockey before baseball.
Yeah.
And the second it started coming to fruition, I'm like, holy crap, this is going to happen. And me and like all of my friends and the hockey community, we were so grateful that we got the NHL here, and it's been welcomed like amazing. I think.
Oh
So
yeah,
I've been to almost half the games, and it is awesome.
It's been surreal. So me and my family kind of had a hunch that the NHL was coming here because we did the music for the Utah Grizzlies.
Yeah.
And my dad will always tell this story, and he's like, well, one day I had a couple men come up to me, and they were wearing suits, and this was probably 10 years ago. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, can we sit next to you? And he's like, yeah, sure. Who are you guys?
Yeah.
We're with the NHL.
That's
so they were definitely scoping out,
Yeah.
Utah and what Utah's all about. And we've got a lot of new fans to the sport, which is incredible. And we welcome all the new fans. Callie, our awesome videographer, she is. We have converted her over to a hardcore hockey fan.
Love it.
But yeah, it's been incredible to see. It's been incredible to see like the response that the community has given to Utah and to just everything that's happening. You know?
I mean, I drive down the freeway and you see cars with bumper stickers of Utah Hockey Club.
Yep.
I see shirts all over the place. Hoodies.
I saw a guy filling up his gas the other day wearing a jersey. I was like,
yes. It is amazing. And I've gone to a lot of games, and I grew up Jazz games as well.
Yeah.
And just the energy in the arena, how full it is, the passion. And I think hockey is hard to watch on TV if you haven't been there before.
Yeah, you got to like know what you got to know the sport
but
for sure.
Bringing somebody to a game, even if they're for the first time, by the end of the night they're like, "Wow, that was so fast!"
Yeah.
Like it's not. There's no dead time. It's always go action, and everybody that has gone is immediately want to go back.
Yeah.
And going to the games and you see how full it is.
Yeah,
it is. It's really.
And
cool.
if you're hooked, like if one day, like if people have watched it up in the Upper Bowl, it's kind of it's a very like it's fast in the Upper Bowl. If you can get down to the lower bowl, I'm telling you, your head won't stop.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Going left and right.
Yes. Yep.
It's incredible.
And then, living in Utah and sitting there and watching at a hockey game and having beer chugs. I was like, wow, this. Yeah,
let's go.
Utah has evolved. That was one thing I was blown away with.
Now we just need to get some UTOG beer in the Delta Center.
I'm working on it. Yes, that is my goal. So
were you there for the Dylan Gunther overtime goal? that recently happened?
No, I was not there for that. I only made about half the games. I missed that one,
man.
But I saw it.
So I
amazing.
wasn't there either, but I that's just one of those moments that I think that can truly like convert somebody into a lifetime hockey fan.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, I saw a lot of hockey games doing the music for the Utah Grizzlies, and that's what converted me. Like it started off kind of just, as a job. I was there. It was fun. But man, when I learned the game, and I've seen, fights. I mean, I saw a goalie fight when we did music, and
it's crazy, huh?
It'll convert you, man. It'll convert you very quickly.
I'm so happy with how it's gone. And, if we can keep fighting and make playoffs, wow, it's going to be, even if they don't, it's been a great season. I think the state is behind it, and it's cool.
I mean, heck of a win. Yes. Our last game against, who was it again? It was the Capitals.
Yeah, an shootout.
Yeah. So Ovechkin, right? Ovechkin this year is on track to break Wayne Gretzky's record. And before the All-Star break, I'm gonna say All-Star break, but it's actually the Four Nations break. We're gonna do a Four Nations watch party. I think this is gonna air prior to our watch party.
Cool.
So we're doing a Four Nations watch party for the championship game. That will be on February 22nd.
Yeah, Thursday.
Or 20th.
20th. I think it's Thursday
the 20th. Yeah,
yep.
Thursday the 20th.
Yep.
The Four Nations championship game. It's going to be incredible. And we've got two gentlemen on, Finland? This sucks right now because I can't remember who. I can't. It's Bala. I can't remember. We've got two players going to the Four Nations.
Okay,
but it's kind of a big deal because
we have it on the TVs right now. Obviously, we'll miss it for today. But
is it?
Yeah, we got
it's actually
Finland,
on today.
I think it's Finland and U.S.
Oh man,
tonight,
what are we doing? We're podcasting.
We'll be up there. We'll be up there soon. So
no, super cool. But we're super excited for that. And I can't say enough about Carson and this company that and all the things that they've done here in the Ogden community. We're trying to involve the northern fans, because I feel like a lot of the Utah Hockey Club activities and whatnot, they happen down in Salt Lake City.
They do.
And it's like kind of like Ogden's a little bit forgotten about. So
they've had a couple learn to plays at the ice sheet on Saturdays.
Have they?
They have pretty good turnout. But getting that northern crowd into it and watching it. If you can't make it to Salt Lake, the Mustangs, amazing.
Mustangs
it's
are
inexpensive.
incredible.
You can have beer. There's food there.
Yep.
It's super easy parking. Like, go see them. Like,
it's actually some of the. I'm going to talk a little crap on the Grizzlies right now, but it's actually more based on the Grizzlies game that I saw recently. The Ogden Mustangs was actually any game is actually a little bit more, competitive than Utah Grizzlies. So it's these young guns that are trying to make it up into colleges and getting those scholarships and whatnot.
And they'll probably make the playoffs pretty soon too. So
and the Ogden Mustangs always do very well. They go to the playoffs. They won the championship last year.
Yeah.
So really huge shout out to the Ogden Mustangs and Sean and everybody there. And Rogue. Can't forget about Rogue. I love I love Rogue the Rottweiler there. If you guys love Archie, the Utah Hockey Club dog, you're gonna love Rogue. I promise. It's the Ogden Mustangs dog. She is a absolute sweetheart. But, anything else? Any last thoughts?
No, I'm just really excited to start. The sponsorship with you guys. Like, I know it's only been a month, but you guys do a great job. I've watched most of them. Looking forward to more. And
we're going to do some cool stuff like, here on site. Obviously, we're going to do like some watch parties and whatnot. But summertime, I want to emphasize summertime because that back patio is super awesome. It really is. Yeah. So we're going to do some fun stuff out there. Maybe we'll host like a cornhole tournament or something. Yeah,
we'll love it.
Get some support from the Ogden Raptors and everything.
It'd be a lot of fun.
But I think that's it. We good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much.
This has been the Puck Drop Podcast. We will see you next week.